There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm Dave Schrader. That's Tim Dennis at the Supernatural News Desk. I was out of air there for a second, Tim.
Wow, that's not good. No.
I'm getting old. Hey, let me make a quick announcement here. Tomorrow's show, Tim.
Yes.
Is something different. It's something unique. And I hope that you guys will check it out with us and go along for the ride. It's going to be one of those, it's up to you to decide, but I'm going to tell my story tomorrow. We talk on the show often about things that, we should do that Bigfoot hunting, or we should do the past life regression, or we should be probed by an alien, right? We're always throwing those things out, and it just, after 14 years, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. One thing that we've talked about that has come up, especially over the last 4 years, quite often, I finally took the plunge and did it last weekend. And now I'm going to walk you through it. And this isn't just a guest calling in with a story. This is my firsthand account of exactly what happened to me. And all I'll tell you is I faced serpents, spirits, and death. And I'm here to talk about it tomorrow. And it's a very personal, very powerful story. I'm fascinated to share this with all of you. And we're going to have a special guest. Her name is GK. She's going to join us tomorrow as well. Tim is actually going to kind of facilitate this interview as I will be interviewed. GK will be interviewed. I can't shut my mouth, so I'll be doing a lot of talking. But Tim will be helping to keep us on path and flesh out some of the points of my story. But for those of you listeners, I know that you love the show, not just because of the topics, but because of the hosts that bring the show to you. And from time to time, we like to go deep and we'll share stories with you. And True Crime Tuesday, I shared my story of what fascinates me, and we did an entire episode on it. And we've been very open about these things in the past. So I'm excited to share this new, and believe it, after 14 years, doing the show, 52 years on this planet, there's not many firsts left in my world, and this was a big one. So tune in tomorrow. That's on the docket. I'm excited, Tim. I'm winging my way to Florida. As everybody's listening to this, I am landing to meet my biological father, two of my biological sisters, and I can't wait to meet everybody in my family. But this is the one that was able to come together quickly. And I for those of you that maybe missed an episode a week or two back, I did Ancestry.com 3 years ago. And 2 weeks ago, my biological father did it, and we connected. And I'm going to meet my biological father and two half-sisters. And I guess I have like 7, 8 brothers and sisters all together. So I'm going to, eventually get to hopefully meet everybody hanging off the family tree. So I'm not sure, what's going to happen, but I'm there Saturday, Sunday. I come home Monday. I get to spend a week with my lovely family before I'm off filming another couple episodes. We are steamrolling right through Holzer Files. I can tell you this, Tim, it's exciting. Some great stories, amazing history. I literally got to stand in a room that was integral during the American Revolutionary War.
Wow.
A room that at one moment held Ben Franklin, John Adams, our second president, by the way, Tim, and Edward Rutledge, trying to negotiate peace in the American Revolutionary War in this room. And I got to go there and stand in the shadow of this history. And it's really beautiful. It's a great story, very cool stuff. And we've got some other ones that I'm not trying to give anything away, but I just want you guys to tune in this fall when Holzer Files Season 2 returns, because we have got some unbelievable stories I think you guys are going to love. All right. Speaking of stories people love, Tim, we've got emails, we've got calls, we've got news to break. So let's start in the world of strange and supernatural news. Where shall we begin today's journey?
The first two stories, Dave. Let's start with the world of conspiracy theories, Dave. The ones that people look at me and roll their eyes right away.
Okay.
You know, this. We'll start out with the story that I think was thrown at us the most this week, Dave. The ones that I think I got the "I told you so" the most in my inbox. It might have been in your inbox as well, Dave. There's a daredevil out there by the name of Mad Mike Hughes. He was making a reality TV series for the Science Channel, I believe it was.
Right.
And he did a self-made rocket. He was going to, well, let me just read the story and we'll get to it. But sadly, he passed away launching this self-made rocket, trying to get to the edge of space to prove that the Earth was flat, Dave.
Didn't go real well for him, did it?
It did not. In fact, it's a bad sign when you're barely off the launching pad and your parachute evacuates the rocket before you do. I'm not saying that in a joking manner. I'm saying that's exactly what it was. I sat and watched this video over and over and over again this past week because I was fascinated. First of all, I'll tell you this. Outside of this story, I became fascinated with this story this week because this is a man, this Mad Mike Hughes, who's done this before, launched a rocket, had a previous rocket crash to Earth, and had broken his back, and went back and decided to do it again.
Wow, never say die, huh?
Yeah. So this isn't the first time he's done this. He's been obsessed with trying to prove that the Earth was flat. So let me get into the story and tell you a little bit more about Mad Mike Hughes. He died while his self-made rocket did crash. And if you've seen the video, it is quite disturbing. I know a lot of people kind of chuckled a little bit. I don't think it's anything really to chuckle about, especially when a man loses his life at the age of 64. Mad Mike Hughes, an amateur engineer, daredevil, and flat Earth conspiracy theorist whose beliefs pushed him to prove it with homemade rockets, died Saturday when his steam-powered rocket crashed shortly after takeoff outside Barstow, California. Hughes was among the subjects in the upcoming Science Channel series Homemade Astronauts. Mad Mike Hughes tragically passed away during an attempt to launch his homemade rocket, the Science Channel confirmed on Saturday. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends during this difficult time. It was always his dream to do this launch, and Science Channel was there to chronicle his journey. Video from the incident, filmed by reporter Justin Chapman, captured the tragic accident, with the steam-powered rocket's parachute accidentally deploying moments after launch. The rocket continued its journey skyward, but with no parachute to slow its descent, crash-landed in the desert, killing Hughes at the age of 64. Space.com reported that Hughes' self-financed mission was for the rocket to reach an altitude of 5,000 feet. In a similar experiment in March of 2018, Hughes' rocket approached 1,900 feet before he deployed his parachute. The BBC added that as a daredevil, Hughes set a Guinness World Record in 2002 for the longest limousine jump, a 103-foot jump with the Lincoln Town Car stretch limo. By day, Hughes was a limo driver. Hughes, however, was also well known in the flat Earth community, believing that the Earth was frisbee-shaped, and with his steam-powered rockets, hoped to prove that theory. His quote is, "I believe in the geocentric flat Earth model. I'm not going to take anyone else's word for it. I'm going to build my own rocket right here and see it with my own eyes, what shape this world we live on." Hughes said in a teaser trailer for the documentary Rocket Man, Mad Mike's mission to prove that the Earth is flat. The Flat Earth Society said in a statement, "Today the Flat Earth movement has lost a dear friend, Michael Hughes, inventor, daredevil, and a self-proclaimed madman, has taken one final leap into the sky in a self-constructed steam-powered rocket as part of a Science Channel series he was to star in. He lost his life in a tragic accident." The group continued, "A Guinness World Record holder for the longest limousine ramp jump, Mike has never shied away from controversy and danger. It coursed through his veins. His bold, outspoken attitude will be greatly missed by all. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family in these trying times. It is my hope that Mike has found whatever it was he was looking for in this crazy world. Godspeed, Michael, you glorious bastard." That's how they ended their statement. Hughes is also prominently featured in a YouTube mockumentary about flat earthers filmed at the 2018 Flat Earth International Conference in Denver. He later sued YouTube personality Logan Paul over that film. Interestingly enough, Dave, when you go back and you watch, if you're able to watch that film of the crash itself, and it is still up, if you go to on Twitter at Justin D as in David Chapman, Chapman, and watch the video of the crash. What's disturbing about it, and it is graphic footage of this rocket. Essentially, it looks like the nose turns and then heads right back to Earth. It's hard to tell when you're watching it whether something happens to Mike as he's ascending or if something happens to the rocket itself, or a little of both. It almost looks like a gyroscope that spins out of control as it's going up and then curving and going back down. But one of the camera people that was on site said something very disturbing, and then it's almost like they caught it with their camera. They said that they thought that Mike had tried to eject from the rocket and he fell separately, and they caught it on film, which was disturbing. I mean, very, very disturbing. So, although one of the people on site said they thought that maybe Mike was in the rocket, they'd like to think that Mike was in the rocket when it did crash. Someone honestly thought that Mike tried to eject and that his parachute didn't eject as well, or it didn't come out, and that he fell to his death. So, I mean, just either way, a huge tragedy. But Mad Mike Hughes did die at the age of 64. So yeah, it brave nonetheless that he wanted to get to the edge of space and get to that line to see whether his theory was correct, and that they made a series out of it. Now there's talk that they are still going to make the series on Science Channel and get you all the way up to the footage, but not necessarily show the footage. So
gotcha. That's sad. What a tragedy. I know. Yeah, people sent that over to us, so we did cover it. It's not something we think is funny. No. It's obviously tragic, but you got to give it to the guy. He really put it out there. This is his belief, and that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't fault a guy for going after his dreams. You really can't. The second part of conspiracy land that we're diving into, Dave, is a little more suspect. You want to talk about clairvoyance, clairsentience? What's the term I'm looking for? Projecting into the future and reading into things. Dean Koontz seems to be...
predicting.
Yeah,
prediction.
Yeah, a little prediction. He seems to be a Nostradamus of his own over here. Dean Koontz might have actually predicted the coronavirus, it turns out.
Oh, do tell.
In a 1981 novel, best-selling author Dean Koontz right now is going viral amid the wild conspiracy theories that he predicted the novel coronavirus almost 40 years ago, even naming it after the Chinese city where COVID-19 originated, COVID-19 originated.
He did this in 1981?
Yes, in 1981. Okay. An excerpt from the American author's 1981 novel, The Eyes of Darkness, how ironic, is being shared online after he wrote about a virus with an apparently uncanny resemblance to the one experts warned could prove a pandemic. Here's the quote. They call this stuff Wuhan 400 because it was developed at their rDNA labs outside the city of Wuhan, a character says in the novel, referring to the same city at the epicenter of the current global outbreak. Nick Hinton, who posted the original shot, insisted a Dean Koontz novel written in 1981 predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus. The similarity quickly made the tweet go viral and sparking even more conspiracy theories, with readers noting how the plot calls the Wuhan virus the perfect weapon to wipe out a city or country. I will say it's damn near perfect long incubation, asymptomatic spread, infectious as hell, speculated a user named Trinity. However, many quickly dismissed the prophecy theories, and a fact-checking investigation by Snopes said the fact that the virus was named after Wuhan is where the similarities end, noting that there is no reason to believe COVID-19
But wait a minute. They're just going to, oh, well, this is really similar. He talks about a disease coming from Wuhan in 2020. That's crazy.
It's pretty crazy. Noting that there's no reason to believe COVID-19 is man-made like in the book, Snopes also stressed that the novel's virus has a 100% fatality rate compared to the 2% death rate of the current outbreak. The original edition named the virus Gorky 400, Gorki 400, after the Russian city where it was created, getting changed to China in 1989 after the end of the Cold War. This according to the Daily Examiner. Bookstore owner Albert Wan told the South China Morning Post that a smart, savvy writer like Koontz would know how to pick Wuhan for a plot because it is the home to many research facilities. Hong Kong crime author Chan Ho Kai also told the paper that fiction prophecy is a common phenomenon. If you look real hard, I bet you can spot prophecies for almost all events, he said. Koontz has yet to comment on the theories. I get that, Wuhan is the center in China of many research facilities, and of course that would be an easy way to name a virus, is to say, okay, research facilities in China, Wuhan, boom, we'll name it after that. However, to pick that out is pretty interesting. Now, there are actually two theories, and you and I had sent you a note, I think it was last night, as we taped this. I think it was last night I sent you the note that I was watching. It was NBC News. And they had a reporter who was visiting the CDC. And this CDC technician had said, we've narrowed down exactly where the coronavirus comes from. Now, initially, there were stories going around that the coronavirus had come out of a Chinese military facility. So this story would have been dead on had that been the origin. But it's not, according to the CDC. The CDC says that the coronavirus actually, if you're ready for this, folks, it's a little stomach turning if you're not used to this delicacy, that the coronavirus originated from the delicacy known as bats.
Yeah.
Evidently, a bad batch of bats were cooked up in Wuhan. You heard it here. And what had happened was whoever was cooking this bad batch of bats just happened to slaughter the bat, and as they were putting it on the grill, happened to either get some of the infected bat's blood or mucus on his or her hands, and then happened to get the infection or the infected blood or mucus on the hands, and then wiped around the nose or eyes, his or her nose or eyes, and then ended up getting the virus into themselves and then transmitted it to other humans.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
How about we just don't eat bats? How about we don't eat bats and rats and elephants as sure as you're born? And please don't eat no unicorn.
So that's, had it been manufactured by the government, I'd say, by the Chinese government, I'd say we need to get Dean Koontz into a military complex somewhere.
How do we know it isn't? And they're just using this bat soup nonsense, Tim, as a cover ploy.
You know, you're kind of going down my alley now, Dave. I would tend to think with all the hacking that the Chinese government does in different governmental systems, trying to get information. I talked last week about the fact that there was, the Equifax hack was originated by 4 Chinese government hackers. That there are different things that the Chinese do to wage this silent war within the world. It would make sense to me. I want you to think about something for a second. And somebody brought this up, a friend of mine who I talk with on occasion about these conspiracy theory things. And we kind of banter back and forth about these things because it's kind of entertaining to me. He said, with the U.S. and China talking about these different trade deals and sanctions, think about this for a second. President Trump has been going back and forth to that area of the world, to Korea. Now, South Korea has had their, we've been canceling flights, and Delta just recently canceled flights to South Korea. And they've canceled flights to China and in different areas of the world over there. But think about this. President Trump has been going over to that area of the world to negotiate these different trade sanctions. What if that virus was manufactured by the Chinese government and it was meant to be transferred to President Trump while he was going back and forth to that area of the world to negotiate different trade deals? And it was meant to be transferred to one of the members of our government to be brought back to the U.S. to infect us over here.
It's crazy.
And
I don't know.
They tested it on their own people first.
It could be, or it got out by accident.
Yeah.
It is weird. Dean Koontz, I mean, you got to give it to him. But again, I think that these guys tap into something. I mean, look, Tom Clancy wrote about hitting the World Trade Centers with airplanes. Mm-hmm. Did that inspire the terrorists, or did he pick up on that from the universe? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Did he pick up on that? Weird stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, Tim, we have a phone line people can call and leave us messages, where they could call in just to tell us how much they love us. They can call in to sing us a song. But if they call in and tell us their paranormal stories, we'll air them here on this radio show. How about that? 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. That's our Voices from Beyond voicemail. Give us a call. It's free. It's fun. And we will feature your story in the future right here on our program. Again, 651-300-4977, just like this caller did.
Hi, Dave and Tim. My name is Jackie. I'm from Buffalo, and I just wanted to share a super cool story with you. So it started when I was a teenager. I always felt like there was something watching me when I was in my room, and it was just super awkward, and I never really felt comfortable talking to my parents about it because, I was almost grown. I was a teenager, and I just felt like they would make fun of me, I guess, or judge me or think I was nuts for thinking that there was something watching me in my room that no one could see. So this continued into my adult life. Every once in a while I would be in my home now, and I would feel like there was someone behind me, especially when I was down in the basement doing laundry. I would just feel like there was just someone there. And then it started kind of following me throughout the house. I would be doing my makeup in the morning, and I would feel like there was someone standing behind me. I'd be taking a shower, and I would feel like there was someone in the bathroom with me, and it was just super awkward. So fast forward, to a few years past this, and my girlfriend and I decided to visit Lilydale. So we go into Lilydale, and we were participating in like a group reading, and one of the psychics immediately honed in on me and said that she was getting a man named Cliff. And I thought it was kind of funny because I don't have anybody in my family named Cliff. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she's going on and on about how this man loved me and whatever. And I just thought it was really strange. I've been married to my husband, never really, been in love with anyone else besides my husband, and I just don't know anyone named Cliff. So again, I let her go. let her keep talking, and she says, he follows you everywhere you go, and he's just obsessed with you, and he won't let you go. So then there's another piece to the story. So my whole life, I have had this completely irrational fear of tunnels. It is completely ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous, but when I am in a tunnel that I cannot see the end to, like if like the Lincoln Tunnel in New York, for example, if I can't see the end, I freak out. I start crying. I shake. I get very anxious. I can't breathe. It's awful. So then she says to me, you and Cliff were killed together in a past life in a mining accident. He was a miner. You had gone down to the mines because they had gotten trapped, and you went in to try to save him, and the mine collapsed, and you both died. And so I just thought that was really interesting, considering my completely irrational fear of tunnels now in this life, and never really, I don't know if I really believed in past lives before this interaction with the psychic, but I just thought it was really cool, and I still have that feeling of Cliff being around, so now instead of being afraid of him, I just say hi. So I hope you guys are awesome, and I love your show. Keep doing what you're doing.
Very cool. Thank you. It's just that simple. Call and leave us your story. We want scary. We want funny. We want weird, but it's got to be supernatural. Maybe you played with a Ouija board and have a kooky tale to tell us. Maybe you were abducted by aliens or saw a Bigfoot. Maybe you've just had ghosts in your life your whole life and you want to talk to somebody about it. We are the ear, and we want to hear. Ooh, I like that, Tim. That should be on our T-shirt. We are the ear, and we want to hear.
Yeah.
Hi, Dave and Tim. Here's a few short stories for you. This is the other way you can reach out to me, Tim, via email, dave@darknessradio.com. My best friend Nicole and I visited the Stanley Hotel for a paranormal event with the Ghost Hunters team about 10 years ago. The first night we were going to investigate the theater in the separate automatically and screeched. Okay, that's not a good start when sentences start coming in and it's weird.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm mortified, but we all had a good laugh about it. Let me read this again. I'm reading it word for word. I'm going to just read it fluidly. You tell me if I missed something.
Okay.
The first night we were going to investigate the theater in the separate automatically and screeched. Yeah, that's just right. I'm not messed up on this. It's just missing something.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, I'm mortified, but we all had a good laugh about it. While in the theater, several of us were sitting on the stage in the dark conducting an EVP session. When we were asking questions, the metal chairs would move in response to our questions. It was light enough in the room to see that there was no one in there moving the chairs. This happened at least a dozen times, but we didn't catch any voices on the recorders. Later that night, we were in the Stephen King room doing an EVP session with Mark and Debbie Constantino. One of the hotel employees was telling us the history of the room and told us some stories of others that had stayed in that room. There have been reports of people sleeping in the room and see someone peeking over the headboard, which is odd because the headboard is pushed up against the wall. On our EVP session, we caught a spirit saying, "Headboard," several different times. That was wild. We shared a room in the second building off to the side. That's called the Manor House. I can't recall the room number, but it was upstairs, next to the room that had most of the reported activity in that building. That would be room 1302. I was sleeping away, but Nicole felt someone bang on the end of the bed a handful of times, hard enough to sort of bounce us on the mattress. She made sure it wasn't me moving each time it happened and spent the rest of the night terrified and watching the room. The ghost was probably trying to get me to stop snoring, she says. On a completely unrelated note, by the way, that was our event, Darkness Radio. I think that was one of our very first Stanley Hotel events.
Ah, yeah.
On a completely unrelated note, maybe some stories to save for a separate show are below. Oh, no, we don't do that here, folks.
No.
You send the stories, we're going to read them.
Yep.
I was born and raised in Billings, Montana. My dad is from Lewiston, Montana, which, for whatever reason, is a hotspot for ET activity. I grew up on stories of mutilated cattle that were completely drained of their blood with no marks or mutilated in strange and curious ways. Their bodies were often lined up in a row, heifers facing one way, bulls facing the other. I remember camping near Lewiston, and almost every night you can watch the sky and see stars moving in ways that they shouldn't. Not moving in a straight line like a satellite, but rather moving quickly, stopping, moving in other directions, stopping, and then disappearing in the blink of an eye. I'm retelling these stories here but my dad was a police officer in the late 70s. He told me a story of stopping to investigate an abnormally bright blue light in the woods. He radioed in his stop to the dispatch. He walked into the woods, didn't see anything, and the light was gone, so he walked back out. When he walked back out, there were several other cops there that he hadn't heard them pull up. When he asked why, the cops said that he had been missing for over 2 hours. From my dad's perspective, he had been in the forest for less than 2 minutes. I fondly like to joke to him about being probed. He doesn't think it's as funny as I do. He also told me another story about driving down a dirt road at night with his girlfriend when he was a teenager. He saw bright lights coming up too quickly behind him. He pulled over thinking it was some kind of kids out joyriding. Whatever was following them hit the tailgate of his truck hard enough to lurch them forward and leave a sizable dent in the tailgate. He was freaked out and got out to investigate, but there was nothing there besides the large dent, but no evidence of who or what caused the dent or the loud thud. Sorry for the long email. I love you guys. Come see us here in Montana. Lots of ghost stories and haunted places. That comes from Kara. Thank you, Kara. Maybe we will. Like the monkeys, we may be coming to your town. You just don't know. All right, Tim, where are we up to next?
Actually, you want a quick movie review?
Please.
All right. This past week, I went and saw The Invisible Man. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it. Yeah.
I have.
I know.
And, how was it?
Actually, I thought it was very, very good. I was quite impressed. Again, another Blumhouse film. And I'm trying to think of the director is Lee Wannell. And it's an interesting twist on the Invisible Man mythos. You know, normally the Invisible Man is quite tortured. This time, the Invisible Man is an abuser, which is kind of interesting. I will throw this out there. If you are a victim of physical abuse, or you have kind of those PTSD symptoms from physical abuse, I don't know that this is your movie. Honestly,
okay, that's good news, right? I mean, that's not good news, but it's a good heads up.
Yeah, because this does play upon every single fear of that situation, and there are some intense scenes having to do with physical abuse. But to encapsulate it, you have a woman, Cecilia, who's an abusive ex, basically takes his own life and leaves her part of his fortune. He's in optics, and has created his own optics company. And in that, she believes she's free, but then she starts to see this ghostly-like activity, and then it goes from there. And it escalates, and weird stuff starts to happen to her, and then
So is this in the vein of a psychological thriller or a horror movie?
It starts out psychological thriller and then moves to horror, and in that it gets very physical. I mean, there is very physical things that happen in here. It's very much psychological in the beginning. The worm turns about midway through the movie, and very physical things do happen here in this movie. So it very much plucks the strings, and it's not even a slow build. It's more of a, I think you'd like it because the pacing, even though this movie clocks in at over 2 hours. I was sitting next to a friend of ours, a movie critic, Tim Lammers. And when we first heard the runtime of the movie, we both looked at each other like 2 hours is a long time. So we thought, well, how are you going to, sustain 2 hours? What's great about this movie is the pacing is very good. And there's plenty there. There's plenty of meat to the story, and it's a very good story at that. Enough so that I don't want to go too much into the story. Just enough to tell you that that there are plenty of twists and turns to the story. And it's really good in that there's plenty of gaslighting going on with the main character. And you see this slow descent into madness with the main character, Cecilia.
All right.
And
so it's good overall movie, though, right? I mean, you're saying it's a fully fleshed out flick. It's not just hanging on one thin premise like The Invisible Man.
Right. There's no. It's not a one trick pony. There's multiple threads in this movie, and it really keeps you engaged. To me, and this is again on a horror movie scale or a thriller scale, I give it a 4 out of 5. And you know me, I'm tough. I'm tough with movies. I really did enjoy this. I really thought it was a solid movie.
Cool. All right. That's something I'll have to check out for myself. 4 out of 5 from Tim.
Yeah.
Holy cow. All right. Where are we going next in the world of news?
We are going to Canada, Dave, the home of maple syrup and Texas Rangers.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Timmy Hose. Timmy who's?
Timmy Hortons. Yeah.
Timmy Hortons. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Tammy Hittens.
Yeah.
Cherry Dittens. What?
Yeah, where you can get your Timbits.
Yeah. Pardon me?
That's what they call them, I think.
Okay.
They shut them all down in Minnesota. I can't go there anymore.
Yeah, they knew that you weren't going to move, so they had to.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was.
Reverse stalking law.
Yeah.
All right. So what's going on in Canada?
Well, it's about UFOs again. The University of Manitoba's archive of the paranormal just became a little more extraordinary, Dave. They're adding on. They got a new edition. Not like Ricky, Bobby, and Mike, but a donation of 30,000 UFO-related materials makes the university the place to be for paranormal research in Canada. The University of Manitoba's collection of the paranormal just got a little further out of this world. In October, the university's Archives and Special Collections Unit received a private donation by Canadian ufologist Chris Rutkowski of some 30,000 UFO-related materials. It all adds to the university's already impressive psychical research and spiritualism collections, making it a hub for paranormal archival research in Canada. According to Shelley Sweeney, the recently retired head of Archives and Special Collections at University of Manitoba, the artifacts donated by Mr. Rutkowski detail various UFO sightings. People from all across Canada would gather the sightings and then they would feed them to him, and he would create an annual report, she says. The donation includes 20,000 UFO reports filed since 1989, 10,000 UFO-related documents from the Canadian government, and artifacts from Stefan McCulloch's 1967 encounter with a UFO in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, including the burned clothing he wore that night. There's also more than 2,000 books on UFOs and research from 10 books by Mr. Rutkowski, who is also a science writer and media relations specialist at U of M. This is a larger amount of material than we normally get, for sure. She went on to say, it's an extraordinary archive, says Dr. Sweeney. It's also the first UFO-related material that has been added to the university's psychical research and spiritualism collections. It signals to people that this is a place where we entertain collections that look at life in a different way, that we're open to at least considering that there might be some other alternative reality other than what we experience, Dr. Sweeney went on to say. The spiritualism collection started with the collection of seance photos from the family of paranormal researchers T.G. and Lillian Hamilton that date from 1918 to 1945. It has since grown to more than 50 fonds and collections, attracting researchers from various fields who are looking into paranormal events or what beliefs in the paranormal can tell us about the human condition. It's this aspect out of the collection that Dr. Sweeney says most often draws researchers to it. People are plenty welcome to be skeptical about the collections, Dr. Sweeney went on to say. Believe it, don't believe it, that's really immaterial, she went on to say. It's documenting a social phenomenon. And there you go. That's the article there.
Very cool. Let's do this. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got more coming your way. I'm Dave. That's Tim. This is Supernatural News Parashare Saturday on Darkness Radio.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. Be the someone who gives their time. Be the someone who lends an ear. Be the someone who takes a step. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN, asking you to join the fight against sexual violence and volunteer in your community. Log on to RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org, to learn how you can be the someone.
This message brought to you by the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network and this station.
This message brought to you by FEMA. Home fires occur most often in winter. Keep anything that can catch fire at least 3 feet from heating equipment. And never use an oven to heat your home. Stay in the kitchen when frying, grilling, or broiling food. Turn space heaters off when you leave the room or go to bed. Make sure all vents are clear of snow and ice to allow carbon monoxide to vent outside. Have your furnace, heating system, and chimneys serviced each year by a qualified professional. Learn more at www.usfa.fema.gov.
Welcome back to the program. The best in paranormal talk radio is on the air. This is Darkness Radio. Hey folks, do me a favor. On today's program, you're going to see a link for the Polar Plunge. My son Cliff is a Minnesota firefighter. He is taking the plunge today to help raise much needed funds for the Special Olympics. And although we may have hit our goal, we still want to help them because every dollar raised goes to help get uniforms, travel, and helps the training for these Special Olympians. So we set a goal of $3,000. We'd like to shatter that goal. Over the last 3 years, I think we've raised $13,000. We'd really like your help this year exploding and getting past that $3,000 goal. There's a link in today's show. I just challenge if every listener donates $1, we could raise $100,000 this weekend alone. $1. That's all I'm asking from every listener. We could explode this deal. If you've got it in your heart to give 5, 10, 15, 20 or more, please feel free to do so. But please click the link on today's show information and make that donation. All right. It is Supernatural News Parashare. What does that mean? We read your stories, we take your calls, and Tim digs up the strangest news from around the world to share with you. But first, call us, 651-300-4977. That's our Voices from Beyond voicemail. We want to hear your stories of the strange and supernatural, just like this caller.
Hey, Dave and Tim, what's going on, man? This is Moonbeam Star calling you from Spartanburg, South Carolina, baby. Yeah, see, I don't know what's up with me. I don't know if I'm haunted or someone can actually personally haunted, or I just had bad luck growing up living in some paranormal places. So I have a ton of stories that happened to me. But one of them I'm going to drop on you is it happened Thanksgiving 1995. That night I had a dream. And in this dream I was running away from a hearse. Now, this dream took place in my neighborhood, so everything was familiar with me and stuff. So I kept running throughout the whole dream, running from this hearse. Every street it turned down, this hearse turned down with me. Hours later, there's a pounding on our front door. I lived with my grandparents at the time. There's this pounding. I jump up, my grandparents jumped up, and it was my aunt. This was like 6:30 in the morning, and she told my grandmother her son just passed away. He died of a heart attack in bed Thanksgiving morning. And after that happened, I don't know if I was to see in the future, because I remember this dream still sticks with me today and stuff. It still sticks with me about this hearse chasing me. Then all of a sudden, like I said, waking up, pounding at the front door, and my aunt telling us that my uncle passed away. But years later, in 1999, in the same home, my grandfather passed away. So the next day, as I was standing in the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator door up, and I hear my grandfather's voice say, "Get out of the refrigerator." And my grandfather was always just strict on anybody opening the refrigerator door. He was the kind of person was like, you get in, you get out what you got to get. Don't open the door up and just sit there and stare in the refrigerator. So I remember opening the door, and I heard his voice say, shut that door. And I remember stopping and turning. I was like, what, Grandpa? And it dawned on me that he was not there no more. Oh, still gives me the ouija-bitches thinking about it. But those are a couple of things that have happened to me. You know, I'll probably shoot you back another message and let you know some more stories that happened to me in this neighborhood and in the same home throughout the years I lived there. But, hey, I'm a big fan. Keep up the good work. Love you guys.
All right, folks, we love them. You've got them. Share them with us. That's all we can ask. 651-300-4977 or email your stories to me, dave@darknessradio.com. And keep the cards and letters coming. If you're interested, you could send them to us at Darkness Radio, and you could address it to either Tim or to me. And you can mail these, snail mail, P.O. Box 22321. I'm old, Tim. Numbers is hard.
No.
It's P.O. Box 22321, Eagan, Minnesota. That's E-A-G-A-N, Minnesota 55122. And thank you. We've gotten a lot of really nice little cards and letters from you guys and directed to who you want to read it. So if you're sending your nudie pictures to Tim, don't put my name on the envelope.
Why not?
Did you hear me, gentlemen? Don't put my name on the envelope.
Gentlemen.
Send your nudie pictures to Tim, but don't send them to me. No offense, gentlemen. I'm just putting it out there. But if you have cards, letters, I know some people have sent a few little gifts along for us. Thank you so much. We do appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts. So you can send it to Darkness Radio, either Dave or Tim, at P.O. Box 22321, Eagan, E-A-G-A-N, Minnesota 55122. All right. Now that the gentlemen know where to send the pictures to, Tim, let's move on.
Way to narrow that audience. I appreciate it.
What? What?
Huh?
I'm just helping.
Ladies are welcome too. I mean, you know, let's not discriminate. Just saying.
What? Where are we going next in the world of supernatural news?
Well, we're doing a little Hollyweird reporting, Dave. It turns out that a haunted White House TV series is in the works, and surprise, surprise, it turns out Robert Kirkman doesn't have enough to do. Evidently, that Walking Dead thing isn't working out as well as we thought it would.
Yeah, this guy's a billionaire from that silly series.
Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman's Skybound imprint will adapt the upcoming novel The Residents by Andrew Piper as a hybrid of scripted and unscripted series, with each season focusing on true stories from a different presidential administration. Skybound, the publishing and production company fronted by The Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman, is ready to explore a haunted White House. The company is planning to adapt its upcoming novel, The Residents, for television. Andrew Piper's forthcoming novel, which is due in September, extrapolates the true accounts of President Franklin Pierce and First Lady Jane Pierce, who lost their child in a tragic accident shortly before inauguration, then reported paranormal visions, auditory hallucinations, and other cryptic phenomena. I'm so proud of you, by the way. I've said that word now like 4 or 5 times.
When people tune in tomorrow, they'll find out why I was able to break that habit, Tim.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Other cryptic phenomena. Living in the White House. Okay. Skybound, whose Skybound Books banner will publish the novel, will team with Radical Media to develop the novel for television. Skybound Books is an imprint of Simon & Schuster. The TV series will follow a format similar to Radical Media's recent Nat Geo series Mars and upcoming history show Grant, and will combine scripted elements rooted in historical fact with unscripted expert interviews. Season 1 will focus on the Pierce's story, like Piper's novel does. Subsequent seasons will explore other paranormal experiences reported during other presidencies, including those of Lincoln, Kennedy, and Truman. Piper will exec produce the series, which has not yet been taken out to the marketplace. Piper is the author of 9 novels, including The Demonologist and The Homecoming. So there you go.
Very cool. That actually sounds like an interesting show. I like it.
It does. Sounds very interesting indeed.
Oh, man. Sign me up, Kirkman.
Yeah.
You'll get my money, damn it. You'll get it all.
I think he's gotten everybody's money 2 or 3 times over. Yeah.
Good on him. Good on him. I wish everybody that kind of success.
Yeah.
That's what I've got to say about that, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tim. It's my turn to read now, buddy boy.
All right, then.
Hi, Dave. I saw you on Channel 9. Can't wait for the new season of the Holzer Files. I'm 63 now and hardly make it past 9 p.m., so I've decided to just write you about my experience. It was 1974. I was 18. Got into a road rage incident with a guy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was the passenger, and it was the driver who was interacting with the other driver. The guy came after me because the driver was a woman. Before I could get out of the car, he got my door open and punched me in the face, breaking my nose. I'm not quite sure what show he's writing into, but we're going to continue.
I didn't know that Violent Altercations of Colorado was one of the shows we did, but hey, let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
Bleeding profusely, I actually held my own for a few seconds before passing out from loss of blood.
Oof.
Holy Christmas. I went down at the back of the car, and he went to the driver's side and punched the woman who had been driving.
Damn.
He then came back to me and kicked me in the head 3 times. Unaware of this, I regained consciousness and was able to get back into the car. They first brought me to the police station because I didn't want to go to the hospital. They made me go to the hospital. There, I completely lost my sense of time and lost consciousness again. I remember coming to and couldn't control my legs from violently shaking. This is where my experience began. I passed out and either imagined or actually saw myself on what seemed like a slab of some sort surrounded in darkness. And I was very afraid. I then regained consciousness and told the doctor, I'm dying. My girlfriend screaming that I was not going to die. When I regained consciousness one more time, when I passed out again, I went to the exact same place, cold, dark, and scary. Unbeknownst to me was that they had sent for a priest to give me last rites. Somehow, I regained consciousness one more time, and then my whole attitude changed. And I told her and the doctor that I'm not going to die, that I'm a strong son of a bitch. The doctor said, that's the attitude. And from that moment on, I began to stabilize. At that time, the hospital I was in didn't have a CAT scan, so I was transported to another hospital that did. My brain had been swelling, but somehow stopped without having surgery. 3 days in intensive care, 7 more days in a regular hospital room, lost the hearing in my left ear due to a skull fracture that separated the fine nerves to that ear. But I was never able to compete in sports again because my equilibrium was so bad. It took several years to recover, and I've lived pretty good life since. Thanks for taking the time to read this. It's good to get it off my chest. Take care, Dave. And that comes from Harold Christensen. Well, Harold, thank you for sharing your story with us. We appreciate that. What a crazy... You know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
Let's go back in time, Tim. So Tim and I are in college. Tim is a DJ at a bar, Max's. I am the bouncer at the same bar, Max's. And on our rare night off from working at that bar, we were downtown, where I think it was the Nasty Habit, if I remember correctly, Tim.
Oh, the Nasty...
It wasn't.
No.
What the heck was the bar? It was...
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, our friend's band was up on stage performing, and the Oxymorons. Mm-hmm. They were great, and they were riffing into an amazing version of Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When the lead singer, Steve, handsome fella, good singer, had to play into the girls in the audience, is kind of winking and blowing kisses to this pretty girl in the front, when suddenly I see this big meaty claw reach up and grab him and drag him into the audience. Well, Tim and I went right into protective mode because we're still in that, that bouncer bar working element. And I go running, I clothesline the guy, drop him to the ground, and I start trying to talk him down. I'm like, dude, you don't want to do this. You're on the football team. The cops are going to come in here. You're going to get arrested. And all of a sudden, I saw white stars. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And boom, all of a sudden, I see white stars again. My whole vision just kept exploding into flashes of white. So I'm holding this guy down, and I look, and there's a guy above me with his leg keeled back. He's getting ready to kick me in the top of the head for the third time. When suddenly I see this bear claw of a fist go up and in between this guy's legs from behind, grab him by the balls. The guy's eyes, he stops automatically mid-kick. His eyes roll back like a slot machine. And there, my friends, is Timmy D, the tenacious Timmy D, standing behind this man, holding him by the balls. And he walked him backwards because he had my back. Mm-hmm. The Robin of my Batman, he lifted a man in the air by his balls, folks, and backed him up. I didn't go to the doctor that night, but everything seems okay. But everything seems okay. But everything seems okay to me. I haven't had anything weird happen. So, yeah, that's funny. Weird timing, huh?
It's an effective method. I don't know if you know that or not.
Dude, I just remember because I'm upside down looking up. I just saw your big-ass bear claw hand shoot down and between his legs and squeeze and lift upward.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. Folks, you should have seen it. Truly a sight to behold. Dave and Tim, I want to start by saying my wife and I love the show and have been listening for 10 years now. So it all started last Saturday night. S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y night. S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y night. It's a little Bay City Rollers for you there, Tim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I keep on dancing to the rock and roll. A Saturday night. I loved that song when I was a kid. My wife was watching The Bachelor on the DVR, and I must have smoked a quarter ounce of weed in an hour.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Started drinking some Southern Comfort and Corona. I was super wasted. My head was spinning, and I fell over off the railing of the deck.
No.
Must have fell 8 feet, but landed on my back without spilling my beer, and my joint still in my mouth, still lit.
Attaboy.
I wasn't hurt. I did hurt all over the next morning, but I think something paranormal happened. Maybe something otherworldly broke my fall or kept me from spilling my beer and dropping my weed. Anyway, cheers. Have a good one. That comes from Carl.
Carl, in wrestling, it's called a flat back bump, and you took it perfectly. That's all that happened.
Cow, yeah. Carl. Congratulations, son. Yeah. Wow. That's a hell of a tale. All right, Tim, where are we going next?
Ohio, Dave. That's where we're headed. I had no idea they had mythical beasts in Ohio.
It's true, Tim.
Yeah?
It's true, yeah.
It's called people who can finish off a whole plate of Skyline chili and spaghetti all in one sitting.
I'm going to Ohio soon.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And I will be partaking of Skyline chili hot dogs.
I'm jealous.
You should be.
Yeah.
Did I mention I'm going to have Skyline chili hot dogs?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I'm doing this fasting, right?
Yeah.
So I watch what I'm eating now, but I'm saving up. I'm eating less so that I can eat more when I get to Ohio.
I don't blame you. One bit. Yeah. I would save up for that.
Ohio. Mythical Beasts and Skyline chili. Go ahead.
They're to be on display, life-size display, actually, at a presidential museum there in Ohio. Calling all paranormal pundits creature creeps and beastie buffs. I used to have their first album, License to Spill.
Yeah, the Beastie Buffs?
Yeah, the Beastie Buffs, yeah. At the end of February, a new museum exhibit devoted to cryptids, myths, and all things odd in Ohio's history is opening its freakishly large jaws to the public in Fremont. The Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Library and Museums at Spiegel Grove are premiering an exhibit on the weirdest parts of Ohio's folkloric past called Ohio, an Unnatural History. That just sounds wrong. Friday, February 28th. Oh, that's this weekend. Once open, the exhibit will run through Sunday, November 1st, so you got a lot of time to see it. The exhibit focuses on myths and legends local to the state of Ohio and will feature the artwork of Dan Chudzinski, curator of the Mazza Museum at the University of Findlay, and an artist who has consulted on films and other art projects. In this exhibit, we're going to look at what folklore is and why it's important, said Kevin Moore, curator of the artifacts at the museums. And paranormal ideas are really popular right now, and pop culture, podcasts, and TV shows, he said. We wanted to talk about which of these ideas pertain specifically to Ohio, find out what our legends are and where they came from, and try to parse out which kernels of history we can. Giving life to Ohio's monsters and myths will be Chudzinski, whom the Hayes Library and Museums reached out to about the exhibit. He and the Hayes Library and Museums got together and began to plan how to exhibit Ohio's folkloric history, considering there is no hard evidence of these mythical beings to be put on display. I designed a lot of these creatures and have consulted for projects in films and books, Chudzinski said, and that was the role they wanted me to fill. It worked out especially well because I also had done a lot of personal research into cryptids from the special effects I've done. Chudzinski said he wanted to make the creatures appear as real as possible, even if they aren't necessarily real creatures. Chudzinski said, I went to the zoo and paid a lot of attention to the animal behavior in my creations, he said. I also used my experience in taxidermy and the research I've done to make these sculptures and illustrations. Chudzinski said his youth was full of dissections and unusual pets, not on them, but and unusual pets. Since his mother was head of the college biology department, he said his family was also full of great storytellers. He says, when I asked my parents whether the Lake Erie monster existed, rather than telling me it didn't, they would tell me to go and find out for myself, he said. He said his childhood led him to work with the Toledo Zoo, where he first helped catalog the biofact room in the basement, full of skulls and hides, and identified things, and eventually worked in taxidermy. He goes on to say, at the time, they'd just skin a zoo animal when it died and did a necropsy, which is like an autopsy for animals, he said. Once I sat in on a necropsy for a snow leopard, and I interrupted them and asked if I could step in because they weren't really preserving the animal. They let me, and I removed the skin, and they asked me then to become their guy for taxidermy. Chudzinski would go on to skin a hippo at the zoo and is even affiliated with the work today, albeit in a different capacity, he went on to say. He's quoted as saying, I always wanted to be close to those animals, so it was a way that they could live on for me, he said. I also used that era for education about animals. In creating his depictions for Ohio and Unnatural History, Chudzinski said he researched witness and police reports taken from those who claim to have seen creatures over the years and used the information and imagery as references for his own creations, treating the process like a police sketch artist in terms of level of detail. But he also wanted his drawings to remain unique and fresh. Take the Loveland frog, for example. Can we mix human and frog anatomy and not make it hokey? And can we also make it look different than everyone else's depiction of the mythical creature, he asked? That's what I was going for. His take on Mothman is a great example of the unique depictions, completely different from any other sketches I've seen, Moore said of Chudzinski's work. There are a lot of similarities in the descriptions of these cryptids that exist out there, but you don't always get full details, Moore said. Dan's work is really realistic, but it also imagines those missing parts. The exhibit will feature Chudzinski's lifelike illustrations printed onto cardboard cutouts, printed to the size that the creatures have been reported to be, Moore said. Chudzinski also loaned the museum's 4 creature sculptures he'd made previously that will be worked into the display. Dan Chudzinski's contributions are realistic, Moore said, and they'll be life-size, so there will be an 8-foot-tall Bigfoot, or Grassman, as he's called in Ohio, in the exhibit. Yeah. He's the Grassman.
How do I meet the Grassman?
Well, you bring $20 and stand on the corner and hope he shows up.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, there's that. So there's an 8-foot-tall Bigfoot or Grassman, as he's called in Ohio, in the exhibit, among all the others. Attendees can expect to see depictions of myriad creatures from Native American folklore and Ohio's more recent past at the museum, including the Pukwudgie, the Lake Erie monster, the Loveland frogman, and a dogman, not to be confused with the werewolf, among others. Moore went on to say, we encourage people to take pictures with the cutouts, too. I don't think there's a charge for that. The exhibit will also feature a host of information panels discussing the study of folklore and why these tales might matter to society. Again, there will even be a children's area in the display where kids can draw their own cryptids and hang up their pictures with the exhibit itself, adding to the existing historical tapestry of depiction and the mystery that surrounds Ohio's legend. There will also be a companion program to the exhibit on Sunday, March 22nd at 2 p.m. in the museum auditorium, which local historian Mike Gilbert will give a talk regarding his research into giants. That, according to Moore, admission to Gilbert's talk is $5. And you can get details for that at rbhays.org. So there you go.
That'd be kind of cool to see. Maybe I'll try to get out there.
There you go. Yeah.
So I got an email, and I've been sitting there on a fence. Do I read this email out loud? Do I not? It's kind of dismissive and rude, but the guy has a thought. So I want to share his thought.
Sure.
I'm just going to prove that we'll read emails even when you disagree with us. We don't care. We're open to that.
Okay.
But, there might, I don't know. Here it is. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive.
Okay.
Dave and Tim, I'm writing you to discuss your mistaken belief that Kirk Douglas died years before he really did.
Mm-hmm.
Starts off fair enough. In the past few years, every time I heard you go off on I remember Kirk Douglas dying, I would roll my eyes to the back of my head and say, shut the up. See, he kind of jumps into he could have left that whole line out, and this letter would have been better. This is my opinion on your belief that Kirk Douglas died years ago. First, when my dad was in his 50s and 60s, every time an actor or sports hero disappeared from the media, my dad would just forget about him. When they would reappear on TV, my dad would say, I thought he was dead. With the creation of imdb.com, I could bring up the actor's webpage and show my dad how active that person's career had been over the previous years. My dad would become defensive and say, I knew nothing about that. Second, and probably more important, is how humans rely on patterns to predict the future or current state of something. If someone counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, everyone expects 6 to be the next number in the sequence. What happens if 6 never comes? What if after 5, the next in the sequence is 4, 3, 2, 1? What I remember about Kirk Douglas was when he was in his late 80s or early 90s, he became very ill. He was put into hospital and family was brought out to be by his side. Here, the pattern is old person gets sick, goes to hospital, family rushes to be by his side. The next sequence in that pattern is usually old person dies. I remember thinking when this happened, I guess Kirk is on his way out. I never heard an announcement of Kirk's death. I just figured I missed it. The reason why there was no announcement of Kirk's death is because he recovered and left the hospital. He didn't die. The pattern was expected to complete with the old person dies. Didn't happen. Everyone just assumed it was going to happen. It didn't. Part of your belief is probably due to the old saying, bad news is out of bed and halfway around the world before good news even has its shoes on. Good news usually doesn't lead in the media and it gets buried in the back of the paper or appears later in the newscast. Kirk's recovery was good news, but not as important as him being ill, in the hospital, and family rushing to be by his side. The good news was buried and probably missed by a lot of people. Your subscriber, Don. Well, I get some of your aspects on this, Don, and I appreciate the thought put into it.
I do too. I get where he's coming from, and
but the big part he's missing in my story wasn't, he fell out of, he had a massive stroke, and then I just assumed. I remember the press conference when Kirk Douglas's son, Michael, talked about the passing of his father. That's the difference. I remember that. Many people remember that. So you're right. In the pattern, Kirk Douglas was old, and he wasn't in his 80s and 90s at that time, because this was, I want to say, the late 80s, which was already 30 years ago. So he was probably in his 60s at that point. He had that stroke. I remember him having the stroke. Then I remember a short time after that he passed away. Not assuming, I just remember the stroke, and I remember not too long after that him passing away, and then Michael Douglas talking about it. Like I said, I can remember Entertainment Tonight, the mirrored sunglasses, the blue blazer. I just remember it all.
Right.
So it's a weird miss. Now, I'm not saying that I'm remembering correctly. I very well could be misinterpreting, which obviously I am, because he was very much alive until a few weeks ago. But it doesn't mean that I wasn't consciously picking it up from some other timeline, parallel universe, dimension. It's just something to consider. But I got to tell you, Donald, as much as I appreciate your insight, by belittling or talking down isn't a good way to handle it. Because, again, if listening to the show and the myriad of strange topics we cover are going to cause you to roll your eyes and tell somebody to shut the up, we're probably not the show for you, my friend. And I don't mean that dismissively, but don't let it get to you. Don't let it irritate you. And if it does irritate you, move on to another show, brother. Life's too short to be irritated by something so inconsequential as our rhetoric. Why do we talk about it? Because we have an influx of people that come and go. It's great if you've been with us for a long time and have heard us discuss this, but other people haven't. So we talk about it, and people keep asking and want to know more about the Mandela effect. So we're doing our best to try to talk about these strange moments and history. So there you go. That's the point I'd like to make. I appreciate you writing in. We truly do. We appreciate you listening. We truly do. And I'm not telling you, hey, F off, don't listen anymore. I'm just saying, if you're irritated by a show and it causes you to have to roll your eyes and say, shut the up, dude, do yourself a favor and go for a walk, get out and enjoy life for the day. Don't be bothered by shows like this. And we're going to have those kind of topics because that's the kind of show we are.
The other thing too, you have to, and you pointed it out quite eloquently a couple of minutes ago, but like you said, it goes one step further. I get people saying all the time on my social media, didn't that person die? And I keep pointing out, no, here. They didn't die. Here's what they did recently. That comes up all the time. There's very few celebrities that have actually been a part of the Mandela effect. Most of the time, like you're pointing out, Don, in fact, I would say 90% of the time, 90 to 95% of the time, the Mandela effect isn't applicable because it's just somebody saying, oh, I haven't been keeping up with what this person's been doing.
And in today's environment, when people are always posting false stories of George Clooney falling off a cliff and dying, I can understand those hiccups in the system, but this was the 80s. There wasn't the same exposure that there is today. Exactly.
So most of the time it is human error or it's human forgetfulness or that does come into play. And you're right. That is most of it. In this case with Kirk Douglas, that wasn't the case. In fact, I remember Michael Douglas. In fact, it was on Entertainment Tonight that I saw it. So I remember that as well. So I guess that's my 2 cents. And I remember the whole thing with Nelson Mandela as well, spawning the Mandela effect. So it's very rare that it happens, but it happens. Again, that's why it's a specialized phenomenon. But that's that's why it's rare, and it's not an everyday thing. But yeah, 90 to 95% of the time, it is human error. I get what you're saying. It isn't in this case.
That's right. But just be a little bit more patient in the way you maybe talk to somebody about this, because basically you're just calling me an idiot. That's the way your email came off. And, there's a difference in the way I represent the story and some of the other people do. So I appreciate it. Thanks for writing in. I'm over it. You're over it. We're all friends. And we hope you'll continue to listen. But just maybe, a little bit of sugar is a little nicer way to introduce your thoughts to somebody. All right, Timothy. Where are we off to next in the world of supernatural news?
Headed to Cape Canaveral, Dave, where a voodoo doll has been speculated to have washed up on the beach. If you're going to build a voodoo doll, you might want to think about some sturdier materials, too. This one was made out of coconuts with human teeth and snakeskin. Kind of weird materials.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We go to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where history shows you can find just about anything on Florida's beaches, and we're not exaggerating there. Some things are obvious about what they are, but what a beach walker found this past week is much more mysterious. It was a rather strange doll made out of coconuts, Bruce Robertson described. Initially at Cherry Down Park, Robertson said he was creeped out. What was really sort of terrifying or horrifying or interesting was that it had actual human teeth, he remembered. Well, there's a lot of meth down there, Dave. You can generally find teeth laying around anywhere. I'm just saying. You just pick them up, put them in your old voodoo doll and be gone.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he says his pictures also show snake skin, and the item has arms and legs with feathers on them. Oh, so it's like a little peacock voodoo doll. It's kind of cute.
Pardon me?
A little peacock voodoo doll. He's got a little peacock. Not like that, Dave. I mean, he's got feathers. He's a little peacock. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Robertson said he dropped it back in the ocean because other beachgoers told him it was a voodoo doll and it should be destroyed, not saved. Aw. You wouldn't say that about any other animal. But then after some research, Robertson said he changed his feelings and now believes the item represented an African spider god known as Anansi. It was the god of slaves that came from Ghana to the Caribbean, and they used it for good luck and protection. We were quite relieved to find out it wasn't a voodoo doll, Robertson said of himself and his friends. News 6 took Robertson's pictures to an African bookstore in Cocoa. Owner Michelle Davis disagreed with Robertson's conclusion, so he's screwed. This right here is creepy, Davis said, pointing to the human teeth. She also believed the doll had human skin on it. Davis thought it could be, or could have been, or Davis thought it could have all been part of a voodoo ritual. She said people still believe in voodoo. They do it here in Cocoa, Davis said. They do it all over in Florida, Louisiana, New Orleans. Voodoo is real, she said, because the doll is back in the ocean. Robertson is advising the next person who may find it to not be afraid. If anybody else finds it, it is not a voodoo doll. It really is a good luck doll from Africa, he said. Something tells me if the expert from Cocoa says it's creepy and it's a voodoo doll, it's a voodoo doll.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the expert on this every time.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I'm emailing my Parashare story because I have kiddos and can never find a minute of quiet, LOL. But my story technically starts when I was a young kid, probably around 3 or 4. I've always been sensitive and empathetic, so things have always just happened to me. But a particular time that scared me shitless was when I was 17. I was dating a guy who was also sensitive and came from a family of sensitives as well. His mom in particular would always tell me, don't go in that room. A demon just walked in there. And stuff like that. I just thought she was weird, but after a while I started feeling like whatever it was in their home followed me home. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the night before I was to take my SATs, and Brandon and I were in a huge fight. I had my own phone line. I know, so cool, right? And he called me around midnight. I told him I couldn't talk, needed sleep for the test in the morning, and I'd call him the next day once I was done. I go back to sleep and got woken up around 3 a.m. by feeling sleep paralysis and just utter fear. My hand was hanging off the bed, and whatever it was grabbed my hand hard, laughed at me with a deep guttural laugh.
Oh, that's creepy.
And in his voice that I still can't shake, asked me if I was scared. At 17, I wouldn't have been ashamed to say I peed my pants. It was terrifying. I have so many more from around that time, but that one took the cake. Have a great day, guys. Love the show, Christina Rivera. Thank you, Christina Rivera.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we off to next in the world of supernatural news?
We're going down under, Dave. We're Yowie hunting just isn't what it used to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Evidently, Yowies are down. If this were the stock market of Yowies, Yowies would be down, and we'd be looking to get that market back up as soon as possible. Yowie hunter claims recent lack of sightings of the mysterious beast is because bushfires have driven the hairy Bigfoot-like creature deeper inland. Australia's Yowie population has taken a hit following the devastating bushfire season, this according to a supposed expert. Dean Harrison from Australian Yowie Research has been studying the mythical creatures for 20 years and claims to have had many encounters with the hairy beasts on Queensland's Gold Coast. He said there has been a change in behavior as bushfires forced Yowies further inland. Mr. Harrison claims there are usually 10 sightings of Yowies each week on the Gold Coast, but now there are none. Generally, it does fluctuate. We can have dry spells, but that whole area has basically dropped to nothing. It all has gone much quieter than normal, he told the Courier Mail. He said it's the same for areas in New South Wales, but the hairy beast is still being spotted in the Sunshine Coast. We are mainly getting reports from other areas. It's hard to say why, but I expect that Yowies have moved out of their comfort zone, out of their natural area, and are therefore keeping their heads down more. Despite the ongoing dangers of the fires, Mr. Harrison doesn't believe any Yowie was injured because of their strong sense of smell and speed of 70 kilometers an hour. Yowies can traverse the most extreme terrain and can grapple straight up sheer rock faces. Dead Yowie bodies have not yet been spotted because they will take care of their dead, Mr. Harrison explained. So there you go.
Well, that's nice of the Yowies to pick up their messes.
Yeah, I mean, but what they do with them after that is beyond us.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah.
Barbecue. All right, how many stories do we have left?
Barbecue. Vader funeral. I believe we have 3 stories left.
Okay, where are we off to next?
We're headed off to, I believe this is Washington. An exhibit for a famed UFO researcher coming to Fredericton this summer. This is for Stanton Friedman. It's going to be unique and very different for the Fredericton Region Museum, says the executive director. Volunteers at the Fredericton Region Museum typically spend hours recrafting military uniforms and wedding dresses from the 19th century, but for the next 5 months, they'll be designing alien replicas made from chicken wire. Melinda Jarrett, executive director at the Fredericton Region Museum, is organizing an exhibit to commemorate the life and work of Stanton Friedman, famed ufologist and nuclear physicist from Fredericton, who died last year. Jarrett and Friedman became friends in the early 1990s when Jarrett proposed filming a TV documentary on the UFO researcher. He was a very nice man who I was very honored to have met and got to know, Jarrett said. Friedman published dozens of papers about UFOs and co-wrote several books on the subject, including one about Barney and Betty Hill, a couple who claimed to have had a close encounter with aliens in 1961 while returning to the U.S. from a visit to Montreal. Friedman died in May of 2019 at Toronto Pearson Airport while on his way back from a speaking engagement in Columbus, Ohio. He was 84 at the time. In 2017, Friedman contacted Jarrett about creating a museum with his UFO documents and artifacts. I said, Stanton, that's a big undertaking. I knew he had enough archival material and artifacts, having been to his house, and anybody who has been to Stanton's house knows that that is an experience in itself, Jarrett said. It was a museum. Jarrett recommended Friedman donate some of his material to the Provincial Archives of New Brunswick, which he did, 5 truckloads worth. That's quite a bit. That was the last conversation that we had, Jarrett said. After the ufologist died, Jarrett contacted Friedman's daughter, Melissa, about putting together an exhibit in his memory. Last fall, Jarrett went to a storage facility and collected 8 boxes worth of Friedman's documents, audiovisual material, and other items that the Provincial Archives hadn't already collected. The storage unit was 3/4 filled with boxes of Stanton's things, and included among them are some very odd pieces, Jarrett said. Nestled in the boxes are dozens of artifacts from Friedman's life, including a Betty and Veronica comic book that Friedman was featured in, a set of ping pong balls with his face on it, awards, family photographs, and letters from the CIA refusing to talk to Friedman. There's also a bronze statue of an alien with Converse sneakers from the Mutual UFO Network. The figurine is essentially the Oscar of the UFO world. We just started opening these boxes, and it was just one thing after another after the other, Jarrett went on to say. Jarrett said the exhibition is a suitable way to honor Stanton's legacy, a man whose passion for UFOs even led the city of Fredericton to declare August 27th, 2007, Stanton Friedman Day. Stanton was part of our community, and he had a very interesting role to play that took him out beyond Fredericton and into the worlds beyond. I think he deserves to be honored in this way. The Stanton Friedman exhibit will open in July and run throughout the year. It's going to be unique and very different for the Fredericton Region Museum. So there you go. Kind of nice.
Very nice. Yeah, we miss Stanton Friedman.
Most definitely.
He was a great guest and a friend of ours on air and off air, and he is certainly missed. All right, where are we off to next, sir?
Talking about the 2004 Nimitz UFO. A third Navy crew saw that UFO forming, but were ordered to stay quiet at the time. This news coming out this past week. The Nimitz UFO encounter in November of 2004 is one of the most famous sightings in history. Now, a previously unknown witness has come forward to say that he saw it form in front of his Navy craft. A third U.S. Navy craft witnessed the infamous Tic Tac UFO in 2004 form in front of them, but the crew on board was ordered to never talk about what they saw. It is widely believed that two F-18E Super Hornets from the USS Nimitz were the first to witness the infamous UFO off the coast of San Diego on November 14th of 2004, before a second team were sent out later and caught the object on camera. Commander David Fravor, piloting one of the Super Hornets, has gained worldwide fame after his testimony was included in a bombshell New York Times article exposing the encounter in 2017. But there are now claims that a third aircraft was in the area at the time of the original sighting, with those on board supposedly witnessing the craft form in front of them. Dave Beatty, who has interviewed several pilots and witnesses of the UFO as part of his Nimitz Encounters documentary, told Jim Breslow on the Hidden Truth Show that the crew were on the surveillance plane E-2 Hawkeye. The gentleman I spoke to, I checked his background, and he did fly in the Hawkeye, he explained. The reason he didn't want to come forward was because he had to sign a document right after the incident saying to not talk about it. Even going out on a limb and speaking to me was sketchy for him, he went on to say. Dave explained that the Hawkeye crew heard the radio calls from Princeton, Kevin Day instructing Fravor to intercept the Tic Tac. At that time, the entire air crew noticed one of these objects form up on their plane before taking off, he continued. All 5 air crew would have seen that object, but when the crew landed, things took a weird turn. The director says they were led to a secure briefing room, different to the normal one after training exercises. They were told to sign non-disclosure agreements. It wasn't really a volunteer process. It was more a sign this and don't ever talk about what you saw, he explained. It comes after Daily Star Online revealed how a U.S. Navy submarine also spotted the same UFO some 4 years later underwater. So there you go.
All right, our final story is here. But remember, folks, we want to hear your stories, and we want you to call in or write in. Dave@darknessradio.com is the email, or call our Voices from Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. Be a part of the show. Share your story. All right, Tim, what is our final news story of today?
Final news story has to do with an English comedian who claims to have seen a UFO during a late-night drive. Popular English comedian Joe Pasquale has claimed that he once came in contact with a UFO during a late-night drive. Pasquale claimed that he saw the alleged alien spaceship landing on a field along the M4 motorway. The mysterious sighting has made Pasquale believe that aliens might be living closer to Earth than space scientists actually think. Pasquale revealed that he witnessed a strange UFO long back, much before the dawn of smartphones. As he reported to the UFO Society, he was asked to draw a sketch of the flying vessel and was asked to take it to the nearby police station. I once saw an alien spaceship, he said. I was driving down the M4 and it landed in a field. It was before the days of mobile phones with cameras, so the UFO Society said you had to draw it and take it to a police station. I got home, painted it, and ran it to my local police station at 4 a.m., said Pasquale. This according to his report in the Daily Star. Pasquale is not the only celebrity who has shared their experiences about witnessing UFOs. A few months back, Andy Bell, lead singer of the English synth-pop duo Erasure, had claimed that he had turned down an offer to engage in a sexual encounter with an alien. Bell claimed that he was once paid a visit by a fleet of more than 1,000 spaceships and flying angels. During this encounter, an angel asked Bell if he was interested in engaging in a media encounter with an alien, but the singer rejected this offer, stating that he was gay. Legendary Argentinian footballer Diego Maradona recently claimed that he was once abducted by a UFO. The footballer also revealed that he went missing for 3 days after being abducted by a UFO. Maradona went on to say, "Why make things up, huh? Once after a few too many drinks, I went missing from home for 3 days. They took me. I cannot tell you about it." So don't ask, I guess.
Don't ask, he won't tell you. All right, well, that's it, kids. Another week of supernatural news, and Parashare is here and gone. Tomorrow, join us on the journey. I'll be telling you a very personal, very powerful story that includes an encounter with spirits, serpents, and the other side. My S's, they're getting sharper, Tim. I've noticed that recently.
Yeah.
But tune in tomorrow. We've got a great show lined up for you. Our special guest, GK, is going to be here. She'll facilitate my story. Tim will be here to help the interview run smoothly, and I will share a very cool, very personal, very unusual, supernatural set of occurrences that took place last week. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for more of the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader. That's Tim Dennis. And if you're listening to this show on our YouTube channel, make sure that you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Like and subscribe right now so that you're always alerted to all of the upcoming things that we have going on, so you never miss any of the exclusive content, special episodes, and more that we post here on our YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio.